Sorry. Okay, so before starting the presentation of the paper, let me add something about myself and the project within which this paper has been developed. I am an assistant professor at the University of Siena, as Gabriele has anticipated, and my disciplinary field is more related to management, accounting, and in particular, I make research in the field of public management. So yeah, I am basically interested in understanding the management of public administrations and the management of public services in general, let's say, considering that public services are nowadays delivered in, let's say, in less defined borders. So it's no longer a topic of public administration as such, but still considering the perspective of public administrations, I am increasingly interested in understanding how public administration also interact with other societal actors, such as citizens, for the provision of public services. So given this interest, this area of research in the last years, let's say since 2019 already, I have devoted increasing attention to the topic of public services co-production. And after some years, I fortunately also won some funds from the minister, which are actually mentioned here, because this paper has been built within the project that I could start and implement thanks to these funds received from the Minister of University and Research, which in turn has received these funds from the European Union within the scope of the Next Generation EU. So the big amount of funds which have been allocated to European countries after the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, somehow to alleviate, to alleviate the situation after the pandemic. So this project has been financed by these resources and has been carried out from research two research units. One is in Siena, so I am the responsible for the University of Siena, but we also have some colleagues. So there's another research unit which is from the University of Cagliari. We are overall like 10, 12 people involved in the project, but in some subgroups of us have worked on specific milestones and delivered the specific outputs of this project. So the paper here is actually let's say an output of some activities which have been carried out by this group of researchers here. So together with me, we also have the pleasure to work with Gabriela Pica, which is a research assistant at the University of Siena, Davide Trudis, who is instead the responsible of the project at the University of Cagliari, and Riccardo Mussari is a senior professor at the University of Siena, who has also collaborated in these activities. So to further understand the of this topic, I must also mention something more about the content of this project, which is B part. So that's why you see here the logo. So B part, as the name suggests, is about co-production, so the involvement of citizens. I will also give some further definition later on in the paper, of course. So it's about the involvement of citizens in the provision of public services, and in particular for this project, we attempt to further understand the impact that public services co-production can have on the trust relationship between citizens and public administrations. So even if the co-production literature has developed for a lot in the last decades, the trust issue is still less developed, so underdeveloped. So that's why it was finally considered relevant to focus on this. However, this topic could be studied from several perspectives, from the communication to the political science studies. But since I am a public management scholar, my natural, let's say, perspective was to focus on the management control systems, meaning those managerial systems that might play a role in the interplay between trust and public services co-production. So this is the overall the topic of our project is to understand how management control system can play a role in the interplay between trust and public services co-production. So basically how management control system can support this relationship. In terms of the methodology adopted in this project, we adopted an ex-ante ex-post case study strategy, meaning that we first had some explorative case studies, so in the ex-ante phase, explorative case studies, so very qualitative in their nature, through which we gather some preliminary insights about the topics of our study. In the second step, we ran a national survey, so a more qualitative study, gathering data on the national, let's say, from different local governments and citizens within our country, Italy. And finally, in the ex-post case, we had confirmatory, so explanatory case studies. So still qualitative case studies, which somehow could explain the relationships that we spot through the questionnaire. And just to specify, of course, the ex-ante case studies were designed in a way to develop hypotheses about these different variables could behave. So these hypotheses were then tested in the survey and then further explained through the ex-post case studies. It was very important for me to make this introduction about the paper because the paper that I'm going to present today is an output of the ex-ante case study. So the first phase, the first part of our project. So it is basically one of the exploratory case studies, very qualitative in its nature, which was developed in the first stage of the project. It's not the only one, of course. We developed around 5 case studies in the exploratory phase. However, we found, overall they were useful to develop those hypotheses that we then test in the national survey. However, in the perspective of publishing a paper on this, we decided to focus on this case in particular. So this case about the repurposing of a mafia-confiscated asset, which is an instance of co-production where the trust issue was very, very pertinent. And so we finally developed this paper. It's a working paper, meaning that it's not been submitted yet to a journal. We presented it in a workshop which is related to a special issue, which is going to open, like it's just opened like a few days ago. So we are willing to submit this paper in the coming month to this journal who has a special issue specifically on this topic. So, well, we found it very relevant to at least to try to submit this paper to this journal. And it's, of course, a public sector accounting journal. I bet that most of you have a quantitative background, so I warn you that you will find something very different in my paper because it's a qualitative one, but yeah, I will give you the details about my methodology, and it would be very nice to share our different perspective in this regard. So, given this overall introduction about the project and the paper, I would start delving into the presentation. And so, first of all, I would like to add something more about the research gap that we attempt to address in our paper and overall with our project. So basically, we are focusing on the public services co-production, which entails, as I already mentioned, the involvement of citizens in any stage of the public service production process. So I will give a more specific definition later, just because it serves for conceptualizing better the topics which have been studied in our project. But for the moment, I think it's enough to understand that co-production is the engagement of citizens. in the production of public services. And so it's something that entails a more or less strong relationship between people from the people working within public administrations and citizens. Co-production as such has been promoted as a tool, a solution to some of the most concerning issues that our societies have experienced at the beginning of this millennium. So first, the democratic crisis, which has been supported specifically by the fiscal crisis at the beginning of the millennium. And so this is, of course, let's say the most important issue for which co-production has been understood as a solution, insofar as it could theoretically support, improve the relationship by citizens and public administrations, simply by instilling a personal relationship between people from both sides. And so this is why trust has been rhetorically promoted as a possible positive result of co-production, of public services co-production. However, as we could also document in a previous literature review that was done during a very first stage of our project, so by running that literature review, we could realize that there are not so many papers, research about the relationship between trust and co-production. That is, there is not such a full exploration in the literature, and so we found it very, very relevant to focus on this, just to let's say to document something about what has been only most often theoretically assumed about the trust issue in co-production. And as I told you, the perspective that we used is a management. One in particular is a management control perspective. Management control is for us, let's say, a term that regards the different tools and techniques that organizations, either private or public, can adopt to manage production processes, where production also refers to services, of course, and in particular, what's behind the management control philosophy is the idea of setting objectives, monitoring their achievement, and somehow assessing the final performance in a way to understand what worked, what not, and what are the explanations to the deviations eventually observed in practice. So this is the overall management philosophy behind the management control, which is a very important topic in public management studies, and so we decided to focus on this. More specifically, we decided to focus on levers of control, as a peculiar part of management control systems, in a way to understand how these levers of control could affect the relationship between public services co-production and trust. So as you can see, it's very coherent with the overall objective of the project, of B-Part project, actually. Later on, I will also give you further details on levels of control, which is actually part of, let's say, of the conceptualization. Showing you the overall research question of our paper. Let me just say that I'm going to conceptualize better the topics which are at the heart of this paper. So to give you further details about how these topics have been defined, especially how we conceptualize them in our paper. So something more about co-production, levels of control, and also trust. Then I'm going to illustrate the method that we adopted, hopefully giving you enough details about the setting, the empirical setting, so the municipality, the type of collaboration under study, and giving you also details about how we collected and analyzed the data. And then I will give you the presentation of the results about the case study. So just to narrate the story, what happened. However, at this stage of development of the paper, and so consistently also in this presentation, I'm going to provide, let's say, a mixture of discussion of the findings and conclusion. So what type, in a way, to give you an idea about how we are interpreting the results and what are the main scientific and practical, let's say, theoretical and practical contributions that we expect to give through our paper. So let's start from the conceptualization. I'm sorry for those who attended my lecture in the previous day because I'm actually repeating the definition. But I mean, for the other attendees of the seminar, it's very important to have clear how I and me and together with my co-authors, how we conceptualized co-production in this paper. Because as you could guess, scholars give hundreds of definitions of phenomenon. So in a way, we have to find our own definition, which is, of course, a summary of the main positions in the literature about co-production. And and so it's very much related with the overall agreement about what co-production is for public management scholars nowadays. So for us, co-production is a social phenomenon, so phenomenon involving people, of course, which entails the voluntary and active interaction between state actors that are people working within public administrations, so people who is formally entrusted for the provision of public services. And so we are dealing with politicians, managers, other types of professionals working within public sector organizations. And on the other side, we have the lay actors. So basically are citizens, individual citizens or groups of citizens who, differently from state actors, are not institutionally entrusted of providing public services, but actually voluntarily and actively interact with state actors in order to produce some public service. Furthermore, it's very important in our conceptualization to distinguish between the different phases of co-production, because actually co-production is considered like a very broad term, basically encompassing all these activities, which could be better disentangled by considering that co-production may arise in different phases of the production process of a public service. So we considered co-programming as the very beginning stage of this process, where there are activities related to the allocation of resources to given services. We made several examples with the students attending the other classes, and so basically maybe the most useful example could be the one about participatory budgeting, so deciding together with citizens how to allocate the resources, why to given service areas, etc. While co-design is the following stage, so the one in which services are actually designed, so where the resources which have been formally allocated are finally organized for activities, people involved, etc. The delivery stage is instead the stage of a production process, so where the service is actually delivered, so where there is the interaction between people giving and receiving the service. While co-assessment is the last step, so the one regarding the assessment, and that is the evaluation of the service provided, so in a way to understand the results deriving from that service, the objectives are achieved, etc., etc. So possibly against what was co-designed and co-programmed. So and this complete the co-production process. So we could deal with different types of co-production in this respect. As for the other topics which deserve a further conceptualization, first, levers of control. So levers of control are a concept which has been very much debated in the management control literature in general, so also concerning the private sector organizations. And basically it refers to the idea that within organizations, there seems to be always, let's say, the need to balance against different forces, let's say. So on the one hand, organizations face the issue of innovating, innovating activities, ideas, etc. While on the other hand, you have also the need to contain somehow the innovation and to let's say to have a broader control over what's going on, considering what is already known. So the levers of control are related to the need to do something to activate actually some levers in the control systems that are able to compensate, to balance the need to innovate and to be conservative on the other hand. In particular, the levers that managers could activate to this purpose have been systematized in these four. So the belief system, the boundary system, the diagnostic control system, and the interactive control system. So the belief system basically are, as the label suggests, are systems of values which overall define the culture of an organization, and so which provides a point of reference to which somehow directs, the behavior, the way of thinking of people within an organization. The boundary system instead is a system related to let's say much more to the definition of rules within an organization that as such define the boundary of the activities and the behaviors which are considered to be acceptable. So defining rules, I define boundaries. While as for the diagnostic control system, this is very much related to the performance measurement systems within organizations, which entail the definition of objectives and the monitoring of their achievement through interim and ex post measurement of the results achieved, and so in a way to make a diagnosis of what happened within the organization. And finally, as for the interactive control system, these are basically information system which inspire the very personal relationship between people, and so the interaction between people within an organization. That's why interactive control systems. We are still referring to information system. It's not only like having an informal chat with your colleague. It's like having specified in systems to interact with each other, and so to instill the interaction between people. Taken together, these represent, as for the belief system and the interactive control systems, those that somehow are more related to the propension to innovate, to change things within an organization, while the boundary and diagnostic system are on the other side of that balance that we were mentioning, so are much more related to the conservative approach. And so together they could be leveraged by managers in a way to compensate each other, and so to promote innovation, while on the other side keeping the control over the process of innovation. As for trust, instead, to conceptualize it, we mainly refer to the economic and sociological literature, because it's less study in our research area. So we conceptualize dispositional trust as the overall disposition to trust someone else, and so the overall propension of people in relying, in being confident with someone else. And it is somehow a precondition to our study. So just to consider that people may have their personal, their own personal peculiarities, which define their overall propensity to trust someone else. Furthermore, we distinguished between impersonal and personal trust. So impersonal trust is trust in institutions, like in public administration. So I could say that trusting public administrations, the state, like a very broad and impersonal entity, is very much different from trusting people within organization. So that's why then the distinction between impersonal and personal. And as for personal trust, so trusting someone, not something, trusting someone, we further conceptualized the reason why people could trust someone else. So we distinguished between a relationship-based trust, meaning the trust which is built because I have a personal relationship with someone. So we meet frequently, we share our ideas. You know, you build a relationship based on this interaction, and so this relationship spurs trust, and so we might say that there is a relationship-based trust. You might also have competence-based trust. That is, I trust that person because I know she is competent in doing something. She has the competencies to do that activity, and so I trust him, I trust her. One has for goal-based trust, it's related to the goal sharing between people. So I trust someone because I know that we share the same objectives. So we want to do the same thing. And so I trust him, I trust her. That's why. So different types of reasons that support the personal relationship, the personal trust. So overall, levels of control, trust, and co-production, as I define them, define our conceptualization of this in this paper. As for the method, we focused on, as I said, on a single case study. We chose Italy as a country in which of course, because it's our country, so we could get to more direct and useful information. But it's also a place in which the topic of co-production is very important, considering that we have pioneering experiences in terms of the development of municipality regulation about the involvement of citizens. And actually, the level of government which was found to be particularly useful to focus on are the municipalities, because they are the level of government at which the interaction between citizens and public administration is, of course, more evident. As for the instance of co-production that we focused on, it's a shared management of common goods. So in Italian, maybe easier also to understand in your language, gestione condivisa dei beni comuni. So basically, it's about the involvement of citizens in the management of public goods, of common goods. So they are owned by the municipality, and their management is shared with citizens. And actually, in our country, we have increasing experience of municipality adopting a regulation about how to promote this type of experiences of co-production. And within this regulation, citizens are welcome to propose collaboration pacts, so which are ideas about how to use those common goods. And once these pacts are signed from both public administration and citizens, the very co-production activities initiate in terms of managing these goods, these common goods. The identification of this case about the mafia-confiscated asset was realized by referring, first of all, to a national association, which is a Lapsus. So we got in touch with them because they follow the development of these experiences of collaboration pacts in our country. So we had a lot of informal talks with them, and also considering the report that they annually finally upload on their website. We did a manual screening of most relevant cases across the national, our nation, across Italy, and finally got to the Don Milani hub, which is this confiscated asset, which is placed in Bagheria, which is a very small town. It's not very, it's like a town close to Palermo, so in Sicily, where a very interesting case of collaboration pact has been signed. Just to give you further details, these are some pictures that we made at the Bagheria hub, so the Don Milani hub here in Sicily. Basically, here we have this villa which was confiscated from a mafioso, so the boss, let's say, of a criminal organization which was operating there in Sicily. So this asset was confiscated to this family, let's say more than a decade ago, and following a national regulation, which is of course also instilled by the European regulation, this asset was first owned by a national agency that manages the overall mafia-confiscated asset, but as local governments have the possibility to ask for their use for territorial competencies, of course, the municipality of Bagheria apply with this request and finally got the ownership of this asset, which is placed in one of the peripheral area of the town. And so let's say that this became a very interesting case for the trust issue, insofar as we here in such a territory, the trust relationship between citizens and public administrations is sometimes really undermined, because of the presence of criminal organizations. Not only because sometimes public administrations are not considered enough, working in the perspective of solving criminal issues, but also because sometimes, unfortunately, criminal organizations are seen like alternatives to public administrations to solve some issues for citizens. So the trust issue was very, very relevant there. And most importantly, the idea of reusing this asset from the side of the community is also a way, to address this trust issue between citizens and public administrations. And actually, the idea of signing this collaboration pact went in this direction. So in 2018, the municipality of Bagheria decided to work with some local associations to sign a collaborative pact to design some new ideas about how to reuse this asset, and the citizens' involvement in the activities which could have been carried out here was seen as a useful way, to re-give this asset to the community in a way, to compensate what mafia had done previously in this place. In practical terms, this pact entails the involvement of some young citizens in the management of this hub, meaning that they are entrusted with the organizations of several cultural activities and recreational activities, which are then provided also to the local community. Like they have chess courses, they organize theater courses, they organize second-hand fairs in this place. So yeah, let's say that there are a lot of activities that are finally delivered to the local community. Data were collected mainly in terms of documentary analysis. So starting from the collaboration pact that you can see here, like in a screenshot, we try to understand, let's say, the overall activities behind this pact, so the objectives and activities. Following that, we had several interviews. Here is the screenshot from an online interview that we had with the councillor. You can see here of this municipality, the manager of the Office for the Management of Common Goods, another public officer who was very much involved in these activities from the side of the municipality. And then we also had a chat with this guy who is from the local association, who also signed the pact. Afterwards, Gabriella, the research assistant, and I, we went to Bulgaria as well in September to have other in-person interviews with all the people that I've just mentioned here. And very importantly, we also decided to have a data collection with the young citizens involved in the management of the hub. So we organized a focus group with them in this hub. You can see from this picture, they have been taken from this hub, so the Don Milani Center, involving all the young citizens here. And for this focus group, we decided to adopt a photo elicitation approach, which is very interesting in the social science field. So it entails the use of photos or pictures to provoke discussions about some topics. And given also the age of these citizens, so we decided to adopt a novella photo approach, which is an approach which requires people to provide their own picture. Basically, in our case, we asked these young citizens to collect some pictures in the month previous to our visit, pictures that for them represented, their very experience at the Milani Hub. And then we organized this picture. We gave them a meaning, an overall meaning, and during this focus group, we showed them all the pictures that they had sent us in a way that for us it made sense, and promoted this open discussion about the topic of our research. So basically, we try to investigate the trust issue a lot with them. This is just to give you an example of the pictures that they sent to us. So, these pictures for us meant a lot. They somehow narrated their values, the activities they had carried out, and so they turned to be very useful to make the focus group with them. Very interestingly, through the focus group, we realized that these young citizens, did not mention the municipality at all. So it was very funny at the end of the focus group to show them our own picture, which was chosen. So the picture of the municipality, this is the main building of the municipality, and this is the collaboration pact. And actually, they didn't know anything about the municipality, and so the presence, the involvement of the municipality in this collaboration pact. And for us, as I'm going to comment now in the results, it was the most important result, let's say, from the paper in this respect. Well, I will not go through the analysis of data, but I will be willing to show you details if you have questions. Considering the time, I will also be quite brief about the preliminary interpretation of the case, of the results, and I will let you raise questions. So I will use, let's say, more or less 10 minutes more to complete the presentation. And then it's up to you if you want to have more details so we can comment them. So let's say that we divided our results into the different trust relationships. So we first investigated the relationship between state actors and lay actors. So how and whether state actors trust lay actors, and so also the role of management levels, control levels worked. So we found in this respect that the belief system between co-producers was willing to was associated to the development of impersonal trust. So just to give you an example, we realized that in the regulation for collaboration pact, so the one adopted by the municipality, there is a specific statement about the values which are adopted in these experiences. So it is expressly stated that the administration and citizens base their relationships on mutual trust. So yeah, this was very nicely stated, and so for us represented an evidence of a belief system which in personal trust, insofar as it instills a trust in the overall organization, just because there is this overall statement about the values. Furthermore, a very important result regarding the fact that in order to be the signatory of a pact, citizens must comply with some requirements. For instance, they must be up to date with tax payments. They have to comply with anti-mafia regulations, and they should not have any criminal convictions. So this is in this way we interpreted that somehow there is a continuation in terms of belief systems, so the values that people should adopt in that co-production, so anti-mafia values in a nutshell. There is also the evidence of a diagnostic system, meaning that there is the monitoring, the assessment of some preconditions from the side of lay actors, and also a boundary system in terms of what are the characteristics that people should have in order to be within that experience. Just to give you some further evidence, let's consider this fourth result. So the regular meeting with lay actors has the counselor suggested in one of our interviews. He mentioned this on monthly meetings with lay actors as very important opportunities to discuss not only the activities, but especially the critical issues that were found from associations and citizens in the management of this hub, the Milani hub. So this was a way like to let's say to strengthen the personal relationship between them. So while as a control level worked in terms of a diagnostic and interactive system, on the other side, as a consequence, it was related to the instilling of a relationship and goal-based trust, insofar as this provided the opportunity to define together not only like to share solutions to problems and to promote a trust based on the goals shared by the people involved. Just to give you also further evidence from the results regarding instead the other side of the relationship, focusing on the relationship between lay actors and state actors, but from the perspective of the associations involved, we realized that goal-based and relationship-based trust are developed not simply by the formal participation of the municipality in this respect, but rather by realizing that people from the organization, from the public administration, is genuinely interested in making the things work within the hub. And so that it's very very peculiar, very relevant, this quotation from an interview with a lay actor. So he said, if I see a councillor being active just rather than just talking or taking pictures for show, I feel motivated. So we have a similar commitment. So I do not trust my counselor, for instance, just because he comes here and takes picture in front of the hub, maybe to post on his social networks, but rather I trust him, I trust her because I see actually his or her commitment. And so in the end, the interactive system instilled by those meetings between regular producers or state actors and these associations was actually associated to the improvement of relationship and relationship-based and goal-based trust. Finally, from the perspective of the lay actors, meaning the young citizens that were interviewed through the focus group, as I already mentioned, as I already mentioned, it was very peculiar to see that they did not really perceive the presence of the public administration. Let's say that the intermediate role played by the associations as signatories of this collaboration pact did not allow them to understand that there was a co-production activity there, simply because they did not see anything other than the mere provision of resources in terms of financial resources needed somehow to manage the hub, but they could not really see the physical presence of people from public administrations because the regular meetings were only held with the associations. And so this undermined a lot the trust, the possibility to build a trust relationship with state actors. And overall, so we could interpret these findings as in terms of a very low disposition to trust the municipality and the absence of real levels of control which linked directly these young citizens to the state actors actually could also explains the let's say the absence of a given positive impact on the trust relationship between citizens and state actors. So going to the very final remarks, so our interpretations about the association between the co-production and the trust relationship was that from the perspective of state actors, different control practices can foster distinct form of trust. So stating using the regulation as a had the possibility, gave the possibility to define boundary system and a belief system, for instance, which in turn affected impersonal trust, as an example, while from the viewpoint of lay actors associations, so only the associations, we interpreted our finding, first of all, considering a very low disposition to trust, but also considering the likelihood to have a positive impact on the trust relationship, mainly based on the interactive control systems, basically those frequent meetings and calls, informal calls that these associations have with councillors and managers from the municipality, so which was found to have a possible positive impact on the relationship and goal-based trust. While as for the young citizens from this other type of lay actor, the absence of control somehow worked as let's say as a counterfactual to the other interpretation about the other lay actors, meaning that while the presence of some control systems were found to have a possible positive impact on trust, on the other side, the absence of the same levels of control in the relationship between young citizens and state actors was found not to have any impact. Like on the other side, actually, we could say that it had the reverse impact, meaning that the trust was not really improved, but rather detrimented through the co-production. A very important practical implication, in our opinion, is also related to the role of associations in co-production, meaning that on the one hand, so as we could see in this case, associations, so third sector organizations, we are talking about NGOs, that were signatories of this pact, and they have, of course, much more competencies than citizens in, in signing a pact, in managing an asset like a common, like a confiscated asset. But on the other side, they might also widen the distance between public administrations and citizens. And in this respect, also, entailing a result which is it's very distant from the one that we expect from co-production. That is, in the end, co-production, instead of reducing the distance between state actors, public administrations, and citizens, might even turn into a tool, a practice that widens this distance with a negative rather than positive effect on the trust relationship. So this is overall the presentation. I really thank you for the attention. I went very fast on the results because of the time that we had, but I'm very willing to answer to any question about the results. Also, in a way to to improve, let's say, our interpretations. For the moment, in our opinions, these results are, of course, considering the methodology adopted, are results which regard a very exploratory phase of our research, one that is able to provide us insights about how these variables could work in practice. But at the same time, even without thinking about like a broad empirical generalization of our paper, we still believe that these exploratory results can be useful, for providing some learning insights to other public administrations, but and also, let's say, overall people involved in co-production activities. So, considering their own context, they could assess whether something can be learned for their own practices. So I will stop here, and I'm very willing to receive your comments and questions.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Very nice presentation. Very interesting topic. So we open the round of questions, comments to Daniela. Let's see. No comments? No questions?
No comment.
No comment, no question. Daniela, do you have similar papers
on this topic?
To compare the politics, no? And on this topic?
Yeah. I see the comment of Sandra. Yes, of course. You can ask me everything in Spanish, of course, as well, because I understand Spanish. I just feel more confident in speaking
you can write the
English.
Comments also.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have some papers where?
Yeah, I can share some papers. Actually, I shared one chapter to the students and also to Sandra about a similar experience in another municipality. It's a very embryonic paper, considering my research path on this topic. I wrote this like 5 years ago. It's about the municipality of Bologna. It's about the reuse of commons, so common goods. This is the overall topic. However, as for the confiscation, so the reuse of mafia-confiscated asset, this is the first study that we are carrying out. Yeah, and actually we found it very interesting for the trust issue, because trust is a very sensitive topic in such context. Sure. Yeah. So it's a co-production insofar as it involves the citizens, but it's also, it could be read in terms of policies to reuse commons.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
you
I
can look
remember
at
that
this
that
case
was.
from.
Yeah, I remember that there was a controversy in the newspapers some years ago about the different politics to apply to these goods that come to to became
Yeah.
public goods that were from the. Yeah, and I was also talking with Sandra that there is a similar experience in Colombia with the
Mm-hmm.
with the well-known this Hacienda Napoli. Is
Ah,
the farm of Pablo Escobar, no?
uh-huh.
But I really don't know what were, they use it for tourists, they use it in tourists. So it became a place of
And okay.
to visit,
Wow. And is it managed by the municipality or by
I don't
private
know. I
companies?
don't know. So this could be interesting just to understand, because also, I don't know if the Colombians politician has some idea of what was the management of these goods from in Italy, for example. I know also
Yeah,
know, Daniela, that in Italy was very hard
yeah,
to
yeah.
implement.
Actually, yeah, we, as being part of the European Union, in the end, most innovations in this respect also derive from the European regulation. And this is one of these examples, because it was because of a European regulation directive and then a national regulation, which that Italy in the end developed its own policy about the reuse of confiscated assets. So following that European directive, we created a national agency which formally owns and manages these assets once they are confiscated. However, the national agency, it's national, is not close to the communities, and so gives the opportunity to local governments, like in this case, the asset was confiscated and was managed by the national agency, but like managed doing anything, because what can a national agency do with that? So in the end, the municipality of Bagheria decided to apply, so to become the owner of that asset. Of course, this cost a lot to municipality, especially because you need to restore those goods, also because under brackets, once they are confiscated, the mafia families make a lot of acts of vandalism in these buildings before
Sure.
leaving the house. So you need a
And people
lot
is
of
afraid
money.
also to no, local people is afraid to
Yeah,
be part of
exactly.
the of the project, I think, no?
Yeah, yeah, on the one side, but after a while, people forget things. So the municipality applied for the acquisition, let's say, of this asset. Also received some European funds to renovate the building because it was vandalized by the mafia family before leaving the villa. And so some years passed. So the community forgot about that the previous ownership, and step by step
Eh,
was actually involved in I must say that in this case, as I mentioned, the associations played a very important role, because the municipality did not have the resources to manage the application to European funds, the time to manage the building, because this I did not mention, but it's very relevant also, as I could see in other topic, in other papers, that if you, as a municipality, if you do not have an organizational unit which is specifically devoted to those activities, it's very unlikely that someone is caring about these additional activities. So the role of associations is very important in this respect in the end. But as we could see in our case, it also has negative effects if we consider that sometimes they are being intermediate between public administrations and citizens. They could turn out widening the distance within them. You know, in the end, citizens do not see public administrations, but just the associations. So cannot really see the involvement of public administrations.
And Daniela, from the economic viewpoint, no?
Mhm.
There were some studies of cost and benefits of the and after the activity was functioning, there were some studies of impacts of the public of this public policy in particular.
Not in my knowledge, no. No, I don't think so. I
As
don't think
usual,
so.
as
Yeah.
usual.
Yeah, let's say that it's a very young policy. Maybe we
Yeah.
can give time to economists to make this study, or you're welcome to do it.
Well, why not? Yes, why not? No, I think no. In general, I'm talking in general. This is a
Yeah,
problem
yeah,
that we have with public policies that normally is an idea of a politician without any economic background of studying
yeah,
the cost and benefits. No, in
yeah,
this case,
yeah,
we
exactly.
also have different costs and benefits that are not economic. This is clear also, no, in the case that you are doing. But in
Yeah.
general, they don't do this. And once they apply a politic, no, they do
Mhm.
not evaluate the, no.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they
it's
just promote the most visible impact, but they are not, let's say
yeah,
that the most
yeah,
important impact are not visible. And so that's why you should study them
yeah. No,
better.
in this case in particular, we have a social problem there that
Mhm.
is probably more important than the economic part.
Yes, of course, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A social problem. Also, I think that without, of course, take it with a caution, but I think that a very important impact that this type of policies could have is to show citizens that we can really fight again
Yeah,
criminal
yeah,
organizations. So we
yeah,
can, yeah, we can. If
yeah,
we are together, we are stronger. That's the
yeah,
the main value that maybe
yeah.
can be inspired
Could be
by
this
this.
could be the most important success that can have this politic, no?
Yeah,
Just to
yeah, the idea. Yeah, yeah. And I might say that in this case, was also talking with the young citizens in the hub during that focus group. It was really interesting. They were very young, from 17 to 25 years old, and they found the hub as a place where they could be themselves. So there were people coming from villages or 20 kilometers distant, because they consider that place a place where they could show their identity. And yeah, maybe it's in this respect, the side success is to provide people a place to socialize with other people in with the freedom of being themselves, yeah, and feeling useful for the community.
good. Somebody has something to add to this interesting discussion, and they are afraid of mafia.
Might be.
No, yo creo que también es muy interesante, muchas gracias. Lo que se me ocurre, o sea, lo que pienso es cómo hacen como para mantener ese compromiso a largo plazo y esa motivación, porque capaz que al principio es como algo nuevo y es más fácil, digamos, sentirse así, pero después para seguirlo, como por ese lado lo estoy viendo.
Yes, Sofia, this is a very good point, documented also in other cases of co-production. It's true, at the beginning you have a lot of enthusiasm from the side of public administrations, but also citizens. Let's say that for the moment, in this case, the long-term maintenance of the activities is very much on the shoulder of the associations. So they still have the interest in continuing the activities at the hub, relying both on resources from the municipality and from other European projects. So, they are not-for-profit organization. They mostly rely on these resources. Just consider that the municipality only provides very basic resources in terms of financial resources, for instance, to renovate an elevator, for the cleaning production, very basic resources. While if you want to make, let's say, bigger things, associations are mainly relying on financial resources from European projects. But still, in terms of motivation, it's up to the association to promote it and to ensure the long-term maintenance. Let's see if this will actually happen in this hub, because it's been signed in the last 5 years, so it's not such a long time to assess whether this will continue for a long time.
Thank you.
Welcome, Sophia.
Please. You're muted, Martin.
Yes, thank you, Aurel. Hi, Daniela. Very interesting presentation, very interesting work. My question is more about the literature than perhaps your work, but I would like to know how this issue of trust and the fact that you put the mafia in the study, how it applies to Latin America and countries such as Mexico and so on, where trust is eroded. How can you do to build trust for participation?
Okay, thanks, Martin, for the comment and the question. So let's say that in the literature review that we conducted at the beginning of the project, we did not find a lot of evidence from the Latin American countries, Central American, let's say from the American continent, because neither from the United States, in Canada, there are a lot of experiences that were documented in our literature review. Of course, our literature review was run with some particular criteria. So we were mainly focused on papers and research papers written in English, so that we could understand them. Basically focusing on co-production, any step, any phase, and trust. We did not find papers fulfilling these criterion, and so we just concluded that there are not so many evidence from those countries. I could say that from a methodological point of view, we should be careful in assessing that there are not experiences in those countries, but maybe just by changing the search criteria for the literature review, you might find something. So I would say that probably you can just look for other papers in the database that we have, also considering non-English papers, and possibly found some evidence. As I told also in the last days during our lectures, most papers that we found documented experiences from European countries, a lot. European countries, and I must say also there is a very nice representation of Asian experiences, especially from China. I know of some experiences also from Africa, but actually the Southern and Northern American experiences are less represented in what I found in my literature review.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Somebody else? More questions? More comments? Mm. Good. So the students of the master will they have to do a report. So I will send you the reports, Daniela, so you have also some probably some comments there because they normally introduce in these reports some individual comments that they are not doing here. I don't know why. Probably they they are afraid of mafia or of you. I
Okay.
don't know.
It might be,
Daniela,
might be.
thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting and something very different of the things that we have connected probably with some of the things that works Maria Giovanna, because she works on crime and tourism, no? So in some
Yeah,
sense, we also connect.
yeah.
And for the rest of the people, we have next seminar next Wednesday. Miriam Scaglione will present a paper about the tourism of events, and so you are all welcome. Daniela, thank you very much. See you. Okay, we will arrange in some minutes. Okay.
Okay, okay. And thank you, Gabel, for inviting me again. And if you are interested in it, once the paper will be published, I will be very glad to share it with you so that you can see the final result after long time of reviews that are expecting us, of course. So, as always happened in scientific research, you will read a different paper sometime, like in a couple of years, maybe. I will share it with you.
Thank you, and see you next Wednesday. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
thank you.
Ciao, ciao.